So hopefully... The trouble is now there's going to be nobody in this stream now, so I need to...
Is the other stream still going? Or
no, I've killed that one now.
Okay, all right.
I hope, anyway.
Everyone will figure it out.
Yeah, they will. They will.
Come on over
right,
here now.
Stream health. Right, so yeah, we are. There's people starting to come back in. Are we live? Are we back? Are we back from the abyss?
I think so.
Conspiracy Cats is here. You've missed all the fun, Conspiracy Cats. Other stream is dead. Yeah, I've deleted the other stream now. Yes, we're back. Dave, are we live? Are we ready to go? There we are. Awesome. Yeah, everybody's saying they can hear me loud and clear. Why didn't I think of doing this in the first place? Dave is what's known in the trade as a professional. I merely make videos and mock people. So I should have just asked Dave in the first place. But anyway, we're not going to go all the way back to the beginning because hopefully there were a lot of you here and Andrew has already gone to the trouble of introducing himself twice. So I'm definitely not going to ask him to do that again. But what I am going to do is just...
Third time's the charm.
Yeah, third time's a charm. Yeah, Andrew, introduce yourself.
Completely different this time.
For the final time. And I'm supremely confident that nothing else can go wrong.
Yes. We'll do it.
Don't put that kind of pressure on me, Creaky. Don't put that kind of pressure on me.
Yeah. Right, Andrew, fire away.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm C.Andrew Nelson. I'm an actor, visual effects artist, animator, voiceover performer, and genuine Dark Lord of the Sith. I spent 12 years playing the character of Darth Vader for Lucasfilm. You will find me in the special edition of the original trilogy as Vader. I'm in the video games like Rebel Assault 2 and Dark Forces as Vader. I'm in pretty much every commercial you've seen the character in. Plenty of TV show appearances, print ads, magazine covers, toy packaging, everywhere that the character was needed for those 12 years. In addition to that, I'm also a visual effects artist and animator. I spent 6 years at LucasArts, the game company, designing and creating games there, both Star Wars games and non-Star Wars games. And then I moved over to Industrial Light and Magic, the visual effects company that George Lucas founded. And I worked on the visual effects for the Star Wars prequels. I worked on films like Galaxy Quest and Jurassic Park 3 and Perfect Storm and Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle and The Time Machine and a whole bunch more. When Attack of the Clones, which was the last film that I worked on at ILM, finished up, I took a teaching job at the Academy of Art University in San Francisco and ran the visual effects department there for about 2.5 years. And my students actually ended up working on Revenge of the Sith. So as Darth Vader would say, the circle is now complete. And then I did that for about 2.5 years and then became a freelance visual effects and animation consultant. But I'm also, as I said, a voice actor. Spent a long time doing voices, and I've even done Luke Skywalker's voice for several LucasArts games. So there, now you're all caught up again.
I hope so. I hope so, because I can't hack any more disasters now. So let's get back to the questions. We've got a question from William Signs, and it's a very simple and straight to the point question. Why did you choke Padme?
She was looking at me funny.
So, yeah. That's as good a reason as any.
Well, of course, it wasn't me that choked her. It was Hayden Christensen that choked her. So, but and Hayden's a very lovely guy. He's a nice guy. I actually met Hayden about 4 days after he was cast as Anakin. Very nervous young actor because he just beat out everybody for that role. And the publicity machine kicks in immediately. So even just 4 days into it, he's already being followed by paparazzi. He's done interviews for TV shows like Entertainment Tonight and things like that. And we were doing a photo shoot together for Premiere Magazine, me as Vader, he as himself, and to promote him having been cast as Anakin. And he walked into the studio and he saw me in the whole costume except for the head. And he walked up to me and he just kind of went, whoa. And I knew he was nervous. And I just reached out and shook his hand and I said, "How you holding up so far?" And he goes, "I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay." And we spent the whole afternoon together, had a blast. And I don't know, I'm sort of dodging the question here because like I said, it was Hayden that choked her, not me. I think he's a really good actor, and I don't think he gets enough credit for how good an actor he is. People forget that before he played Anakin.
Was that his first big role, Andrew?
No, he actually was in the film Life as a House, Sofia Coppola's film, with Kevin Kline, and he was actually nominated for a Golden Globe Award for his performance as a Best Supporting Actor. Yeah, a lot of people forget that, but if you have problems with his performance in the prequels, blame George, because he wrote the dialogue and he did the direction. So, and that's exactly
I enjoyed them. Right, we move on to the next question, which is a much longer question from another one of my Patreons, Jeff Spikers. He asks, "Dear Mr. Nelson, I vividly remember a chilly Saturday night way back in May of 1977 when my mum and I went to the premiere of the very first Star Wars film in theaters. I can recall the very first scene showing the Darth Vader character, and I remember thinking to myself, why does this guy have a tape deck fastened to his chest? Because the switches on those costumes look remarkably similar to my Toshiba cassette deck at home. Has anyone ever asked you a similar question?"
There have been similar questions. People ask me, what do the buttons mean? And obviously they mean, fast forward, rewind, play, and stop. I would tell people.
I always said that if I was Luke, I would have went up to Darth and started pushing buttons because,
Yes.
Yeah. Just turn him off.
You don't want to push Darth Vader's buttons, believe me. You don't want to push his buttons.
No, definitely not.
Maybe it's there because in case he forgets his line, so he can just push a button and, the Force is strong with you. So, whatever. So I know it does look like that. That's the interesting thing. There are a lot of things in the Star Wars films that were just, everyday objects that were converted into things. You'll see some of the rebels running with these sort of round circular cones, and they're actually parts of old ice cream makers. And now that's a very sought-after item. People are trying to find those on the internet so that they can make the prop with it. They can make a replica of it. So really? I would not be surprised if it actually was pieces of a tape recorder that were made to look like that. Now, in the actual costume, those buttons don't actually move. If you push on them, nothing happens. But they do light up.
Okay, next question comes from where's it gone? Comes from Oswald Greco. I think you've kind of touched on this. He asks how long it takes to put on the outfit when you need to perform the role, and is it difficult to breathe inside the helmet?
I would
like to think not.
I think it's not. It's difficult. It is actually kind of difficult to breathe. It's just because it's hot inside there. It's very hot. But obviously you can breathe, but you do end up fogging up the lenses of the mask sometimes. The costume is very intricate, and the interesting thing about costumes and props and sets on movies and TV shows is usually they don't look that impressive in person. Everything's made to look good on camera. And so a lot of times sets definitely don't look as impressive in person. Props don't necessarily look as impressive. But the Vader costume is just as impressive in person as it is on camera. It's amazing. Vader and 3PO and R2, they look just as impressive in person as they do on camera. And the Vader costume, it's 17 pieces, including a lightsaber that hangs off the belt. And you put it on very carefully, very slowly, because you want to make it look just right. The lines of this, excuse me, I bumped the microphone. The lines of the surcoat, you want to make sure those go straight up and down, that the cod piece is in the right place, that the chest box is just the right height, and all of that. You want to make sure that everything is perfect. So it takes about 45 minutes to get into the costume. To get out of the costume, it takes about 5 minutes, because you don't care what it looks like when you take it off. It's hot. You just want out of there. It's blistering hot inside there. There's no fans inside the mask. There's very little ventilation. Visibility is terrible. You can basically see what's directly in front of you through the lenses of the mask, or you can see your feet through the sort of the little breath screen, and that's it. It's not the worst
suit heavy,
costume.
Andrew?
It is heavy. I don't know exactly how heavy because I put it on so slowly, but when you take it off, you feel like you're floating. So it weighs a lot. C-3PO is probably the worst costume out of all of them because it's, you're fully encased in that thing. You have a little tiny pinhole that looks straight ahead. It's extremely hot, and you're bolted into that costume. You can't sit down. So Anthony Daniels, who played C-3PO, he could not sit down in that costume. He had to lean against a board in order to get any kind of rest there. And all the scenes where you see the character of 3PO sitting down, they built a special sitting version of the costume.
Really?
So, yeah. You would think that Chewbacca would be the hardest one.
Yeah, Anthony Daniels is the only actor that's been in every single Star Wars film, isn't he?
As far as I know, yeah. Yeah. I don't know if he's in the film Solo, but he is in he's in every other Star Wars film. He's certainly of the numbered films. He's the only one to have been in all of them. Yes.
Right. So the next question is from Pine Snake, and he's asking, why didn't you take Luke on Jerry Springer to tell him he was your son?
Too many witnesses. Actually, I've got a funny story about that. Years ago, when we were promoting the special edition of the original trilogy being released, Lucasfilm sent me to the Oprah Winfrey Show. And Oprah was actually interviewing Mark Hamill on the show. She was interviewing Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca, and Anthony Daniels, who played C-3PO, obviously. She was also interviewing George Lucas via satellite, and there was a pre-taped interview with Billy D. Williams. But I wanted to do this, and I couldn't get Oprah's staff to agree. I wanted to have a little thing, because, they would do bumpers for, here's what's coming up on the next Oprah Winfrey Show. And I wanted to have Mark Hamill and Darth Vader sitting on Oprah's couch, and Oprah say, "Dysfunctional families" on the next Oprah. But it didn't happen, so... But I joke with people because people will say, to me, I tell people that, I not only was I, Vader, I'm the voice of Luke Skywalker for several LucasArts games, which makes me either my own father or my own son. And I've always said I want to go on one of these shows like Jerry Springer or Maury Povich or something like that, and take a paternity test to see if I'm related to myself.
So you are the only actor that's voiced both characters, aren't you? Ever?
I'm the only one that I know of to at least the first one to portray both characters. Yeah. So.
And that was for a video game, wasn't it, rather than a feature film?
Yeah, there was a couple of video games that I've done the voice of.
Just to prove that I actually did read the information you sent me.
Lies, all lies, I tell you. No.
Yeah, most of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I was working. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
No, go on, Andrew.
Oh, I was going to say a little bit about playing Luke. I was working at LucasArts, and at the time, and somebody had sent out a message to the inter-office messaging that said, "We need somebody to do Luke's voice for a little scratch track, which is just a temporary track." So that they could animate something to it. And I immediately ran over to that person's office, and said, "I'll do it." And so I did it, and they liked it so much that they kept it. So I kept going back to do more because I'd already been established then as Luke's voice.
Right. So the next question, which is one that's this is something that when we were chatting before we went live 3 times previously to this, and this is one of the questions. So when you portrayed Darth Vader, did you have to say the lines? I know obviously it's James Earl Jones's voice, but so while you're on set actually playing Darth Vader, do you have to say the lines, or do you just have to silently act?
No, you have to say the lines. You absolutely have to say the lines, because otherwise any actors that are in the scene with you, they don't have the timing right. So you have to say the lines. Now, the
So
interesting thing is
because
that, it's dubbed in, obviously, with James Earl Jones's voice. One thing that a lot of people don't realize that the Star Wars films, most of the voices, even Carrie and Mark and Harrison, their voices get dubbed in also by them later on. About maybe 60-70% of the film gets dubbed in ADR, additional dialogue recording, later on,
yeah,
because there's so much ambient noise on the set or the location that you don't
yeah,
always get a chance to pick it up really well. So yeah,
right.
but yeah, you have to do the dialogue.
Right. So Kiri Mack, who's another one of my Patreons, asks, I know the answer to this myself because I asked you this question as well, is did they let you take the suit home? But I let you answer, but I know she's added for personal reasons. Now what those reasons may be, I have no idea.
Why don't you want to hit? You want to hit me up? She want to borrow it? Can I borrow it next weekend or something? No. No, I don't have the costume. I don't even have a glove. It's all right because I've got photos, I've got memories, and I've got residuals, so I'm fine. But no, the costume has always gone back to Skywalker Ranch when I'm done with it. It's interesting because everything from every Star Wars film, every Lucasfilm production is stored at the archives building at Skywalker Ranch. From the outside, it looks like a big, huge barn. From inside, it's like a climate-controlled building so that they can store all this stuff, and everything you can think of is there. All the models and props from the Star Wars films and the Indiana Jones films and things like that, and all the costumes, everything that you can think of. The Star Wars stuff, the Indiana Jones things, Michael Jackson's Captain EO costume from the Disney theme park 3D movie, that was there because that was a Lucasfilm production. The Howard the Duck costume was there. They actually used to keep it inside the Ark of the Covenant. Don't open
it. Right. What have we got next? I just saw a question from Conspiracy Cats, and all I've got it. There we are. So Conspiracy Cats would have loved to have seen Luke, Han, and Leia reunite in the sequels. Is that a question or a statement?
Wouldn't we all have liked to have seen that? Yeah. It's a horrible missed opportunity. It really is. They should have been all together. That's I think one of the pities, one of the sad things. I mean, I understand the story that J.J. Abrams was trying to tell with Force Awakens, and I also understand that Harrison said, "Okay, I'll come back and do it, but you got to kill me off." So, that was his decision. He wanted to do that.
Was it really?
I was devastated.
I was devastated when Han Solo was killed.
Yeah, I would say it's actually a good scene. I mean, Harrison Ford can act his way. He's brilliant in everything that he does. But I from what I understand, he said, "I'll do it, but you got to kill me off." So it's an interesting thing. But yeah, it was a missed opportunity to have all of them together.
Yeah. Somebody's asking. Jake Weir 01 is asking who was bigger in stature, Chewbacca or Darth Vader. I think it's Chewbacca. As a viewer of the movies.
Yeah. Peter Mayhew, who just recently passed away. Peter was a dear friend. I knew Peter for 22 years. He and his wife Angie. But Peter was 7'2.5" outside of the costume, and then the costume adds a little bit of height to you, so that made him pretty tall. David Prowse, who was the original body of Vader way back in '77, he was a champion weightlifter and bodybuilder, and then also was an actor. You saw him in films, like some of the Hammer horror films, and Kubrick's Clockwork Orange and things like that. He was 6'7" at the time that he played Vader, and now he's about 6'4" because he's had issues with arthritis, and he's much older. I think he's in his 70s now. I'm 6'5", and in the costume I'm 7'1", and a lot of people ask, "Oh, is it the boots?" And no, it's not the boots. Actually, it's the helmet. the helmet rides up much higher off the top of the head than you realize. So that's where the extra
Really?
height is added. Yeah, the boots only add about an inch.
It's funny though, because David Prowse in the UK, he was the Green Cross Code man.
I
So
know. I know. That's
he
what
used
he's
to
most known
visit.
for.
I actually met David Prowse when I was a very small child, because he came to my school with his two little battery powered cars, and they would lay out a roadway in the assembly hall and teach us how to safely cross the road. So, and he was in TV adverts. So David Prowse was the Green Cross Code man, which is why I've seen some footage of when I asked you earlier on, did you have to say the dialogue? It must have been hysterical. David Prowse saying Darth Vader's lines in his West Country accent.
Yeah. Commander, tear this ship apart until you found those plans and bring me the prisoners. I want them alive.
Oh, dear me.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad that he didn't quite understand why they were dubbing his voiceover, but it wasn't quite as menacing.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. I don't think Darth Vader was ever intended to be a humorous character, and I'm sure Dave's accent would have not held the same weight as James Earl Jones.
True. I met Dave Prowse once, back when I was 15 years old. This was 1978, so it was less than a year after the original film had come out, and he had come to the San Francisco Bay Area where I live, and he was doing a signing at a collectibles shop in Berkeley, California. And I remember the line was just huge. It was like, blocks and blocks and blocks long. And he was there all day signing, and I was just about the last person in line to get his autograph. And he was a lovely, delightful guy, and he was worked well with the fans, and just a great guy. I have never worked with him since. I've never seen him, never met him, never done convention appearances with him. So that's too bad. So.
Right, the casual spaceman is asking how many people acted as the Ewoks. He's heard that there were only 6 actors. Is that true?
No, there were more than that, much more than that. This is, you have to realize that back then, this is before they did a lot of, crowd duplication effect shots in movies. Nowadays, we can do that digitally, and I've done a lot of that in films where I worked on a film called Witness 11, where it was taking place during the House Un-American Activities Committee hearings in 1949 in the United States. That was the whole McCarthy era thing. Are you now, or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? And we had to fill up the House chambers with a whole huge crowd of people, 300 people. We had 30 extras, and my job was to make sure that we could make them all look like a huge crowd. But back then, in the 80s, you couldn't do that easily. So there were a whole lot of little people in costumes, and many of them are my friends today. I know them, and
I was going to ask, were they little people, or were they all little people, or were there children as well, or?
They were nearly all little people. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all little people, and like I said, many of them are good friends of mine now. That's the interesting thing when you work in something like Star Wars. I mean, you see how it unites fans together. There's so many people who become friends because of a mutual love of this as a fan.
Yeah.
We become family on the other end of things too, by when you work in behind the scenes or in front of the camera doing that too. So now it's like I'm able to call all these two people friends, and that's an incredible blessing.
Yeah. So do you stay in touch with the people you acted with, Andrew, to this day, or?
I do. I actually keep in touch with quite a few of the people that I have acted with and everything. Like I said, Peter Mayhew was a very dear friend, so it hit me hard when he passed. And there are quite a few that Daniel Logan, who is the young Boba Fett in Attack of the Clones. He's also a good friend, and we've kept in touch. And the interesting thing is that we didn't meet shooting things, but we met at a convention. We met at my very first convention, and I had worked on effect shots with him, so we had that kind of bond there. And he's fun. He's a lot of
fun. A question now from one of my fellow creators, Radical the Unhallowed Knight, and I guess for part of this question, you need to have watched his content to get the reference. But he asks,
Okay, hold on a moment. I'll go watch a bunch of his videos. We'll
just wait.
Everybody, hold on.
He wants to know which spacecraft do you find spiffier, the TIE Fighter or the X-Wing?
TIE Fighter.
Obviously.
What would I want with that kind of rebel trash? I want a good Imperial TIE Fighter. Actually, and specifically Vader's TIE Fighter. I think Vader's TIE Fighter, actually, even as a kid, I always thought the TIE Fighters were way cooler.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing, and I think it's a callback to, this is an odd thing, but I think it's a callback to World War II. You look at the Nazi uniforms, you look at all that stuff, and they were made to look very impressive and intimidating. And I think that the Imperial officer uniforms and all of that were patterned after that. And I think the ships are also much more impressive and cooler. I mean, a lot of people will argue with me and they'll say, no, I like the Rebels, I like the X-Wings and all of that. But me personally, I love the TIE Fighters.
Yeah, well, one of my
roaring at you as it's coming through space.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you not like that?
One of my childhood memories, or in relation to the Star Wars films, is I used to love to draw when I was a child, and I can remember drawing TIE Fighters or a huge sheet of paper, and they would just, you would draw the Death Star and draw TIE Fighters, and then you would draw Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, but you would never think, I better put some X-ray. It was always TIE Fighters and the Death Star.
Yeah.
So even though when you were watching the films, you were probably rooting for the good guy, maybe it was the bad guy that you actually were drawn towards because they were way cooler, as you say.
There's a little dark side in all of us.
I think so. And another question from Radical as well. It's only shown how many different actors have played Darth Vader. I think it's 4. You, David Prowse. I can't remember the other two's names.
And two
I think it's 4.
Later. It's actually
4?
more than that. It's actually more than that. Yeah, there's enough of us to make a ball team now. So, David Prowse was the original body of Vader in the first 3 movies, mostly in the first film, New Hope. Bob Anderson was the master swordsman and stunt double who did all the complicated lightsaber duels with Mark Hamill to make sure that Mark looked good. Because, it's like having a dance partner. If you've got a really good dance partner, they make you look good on the dance floor. Same thing with a scene with sword fighting or any kind of stage fighting. And Bob Anderson, he really was the master at that. If you've ever seen I think the very best sword fight in any film is The Princess Bride. That whole scene of I am not left-handed. I'm not either. Well, that was all choreographed by Bob Anderson, but he played Vader for all those scenes, and it's mostly Bob Anderson that you see in Return of the Jedi. It's actually, I think, more of Bob than there is of Dave Prowse in there. I was brought in, and I took over the role in '94. Again, starting off originally as for personal appearances, and then for commercials and video games, and then brought in for the special edition. So I was added into the movies for the special edition for all the scenes where George wanted to, add more to the movie, to kind of bring it up to how he had always envisioned them. And then you have young Jake Lloyd is the young Anakin Skywalker in Phantom Menace, and then you have Hayden Christensen, who played Anakin Skywalker in episodes 2 and 3, and that's actually Hayden at the end of episode 3 in sort of a scaled down costume. Because like I said, I know Hayden, and he's not quite as tall as me. He's about 6 foot, 6'1" maybe. So they did make a scaled down version of it.
Because is it more than once the original films have been remastered, Andrew? Because I recall that after the prequels came out, that final scene where it was Obi-Wan and Anakin, it was actually Hayden Christensen and Yoda, of course. It was actually Hayden Christensen then instead of the actor that was there previously. So that was obviously another remastered scene that got added in.
Yes, the special edition. George just couldn't keep messing with it. He couldn't stop messing with it. Well, that's kind of the thing with George. When we were working on the prequels, that was kind of interesting because we would get a shot, because the prequels were going to be released both on film and also digital. I mean, as far as like Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. And so Attack of the Clones was the first one to actually be shot fully digitally. Phantom Menace was shot on film with a couple of scenes that were shot digitally. But it was released entirely on film. So we all had to get our shots done by a particular time, all the effect shots. When we were working on Attack of the Clones, we were told, okay, get this finished so that we can get it done and have the prints made for it, the film prints. But then we would keep working on it on certain shots because George wanted to touch it up a little more for the digital release. And then if there was an IMAX release, we'd get to touch it up a little bit more for that. So it was interesting. So he was always adding something, always changing things. And with the prequels, what was interesting too was that because George was doing this sort of non-linear filmmaking, he budgeted time in there to go back and do reshoots and change things if he changed his mind about stuff. And he did change his mind about things. So I actually
is it right then, Andrew, that when George Lucas originally made the films, he had this vision of what he finally wanted them to be, and there were restrictions with technology and what visual effects artists could do that prevented him from actually making the film he wanted originally, and that's part of the reason why they were remastered? Or was it just to
a money grab,
sort of embellish the story and rehash it?
No, that is the truth. It is the truth. I mean, to a certain extent, you got to realize that, for people today who weren't around like you and I, Creaky, when we saw the films when they first came out in theaters, is that nobody had ever seen a film like that before. Nobody had ever made a film like that. I actually do a lecture that I've done at different campuses and things like that, colleges around the world, where I talk about how Star Wars and Lucasfilm changed the way that movies are made. I mean, literally changed everything. And so George was already pushing the envelope with visual effects. Nothing had been done like that before. But he still had visions of things that he wanted to do that he still couldn't get them quite the way he wanted to. So he was able to go back and do that. But part of it was also that he wanted to do the special edition because he had changed his mind on certain things. That's why you have Greedo shooting first instead of Han, which still irritates me. Because George thought, I don't know, I want to soften Han. I don't want him to be this ruthless killer. The problem with that for me is that you rob Han Solo of this wonderful story arc. Because at the beginning of New Hope, he's this smuggler. He's a guy that, you figure that maybe if it came down between him and Chewbacca, well, goodbye Chewbacca. But by the end of Return of the Jedi, he cares nothing about his own life. He's risking his own life to save everybody else, and that's a wonderful story arc. And it's all undercut by having Greedo shoot first, and also the shot just never quite worked out as far as I was concerned. So they did several different versions of it before it was released.
Right then, so more questions. Oh, and somebody in the chat, I think her name was Melanie the Mammy, is asking, will you say hello to her?
Hello, Melanie. The force is strong with you.
Right then, more questions, because there's a lot more coming in than I anticipated.
Go for it. I'll answer them all.
I am attempting to. I am the consummate professional. Right, we've asked that one. Have either of you... Right, hang on a sec. Let me just have either of you made... No, not that one. I just saw one just now. I've got a question while I look for another question. What's Darth Vader's opinion on the flat Earth?
Well, if there isn't a flat Death Star, why would there be a flat Earth?
Exactly.
Yes. Well, I don't know if you mentioned it to all your viewers, but I am actually a subscriber to the Creaky Blinder. I have been one of your subscribers since you were in single digits. I'm one of the very first subscribers. So
because somebody asked me today, how did I get you to agree to do this. And
Blackmail.
yeah, blackmail.
He's got
Threats.
photos of me.
Yeah. No, I simply asked. And because Andrew is such a nice guy, he said yes. Although I'm not sure he would have been quite as eager if he had realized all the issues we were going to have early on. But thanks to Dave, it's now running smoothly, I hope.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. You are the man.
I try.
Right then. So Oswald Greco asks, he doesn't ask, he asks, what do you think when you see dubbed versions of the movie? So when it's been dubbed into other languages, I would assume.
Sometimes I think it's fascinating. Sometimes they find some really great voice actors to do it. And other times I kind of scratch my head like, what were you thinking? That guy doesn't sound anything like the original, or that actress doesn't sound anything like the original. So yeah, I find it amusing. I've found dubbing things rather interesting anyway. So one of my favorite YouTube channels is Bad Lip Reading, which is all about dubbing stuff over. And so I get a kick out of it. So I find it very interesting when I find characters dubbed in other languages. Now, if they dub my voice in another language, if they dub my voice in another language, I'm a little more critical. So,
yeah, Bad Lip Reading is actually an awesome channel. And now that I make videos, I've got a whole new appreciation for how difficult those videos must be to make. Because to work out, because it just looks just so perfectly as if those people are saying what you hear them saying in the videos. And to conceptualize that and to be able to come up with that sort of thing to kind of redub the video is a real talent in itself.
Apparently the gentleman that runs that channel, he stays anonymous, but the gentleman that runs that channel is a sound engineer. Is a industry sound engineer and voice actor, and so he does a lot of the voices, or almost all the voices himself. But he has brought in guest voice actors, including Mark Hamill, who came in to do. They did a bad lip reading of The Force Awakens, and so the whole concept is if you were reading the lips of these people, but you got all the words wrong, and it was dubbed in with the wrong words. But Mark Hamill came in and he dubbed Harrison Ford's voice. And if you haven't ever heard Mark do Harrison, he does dead on Harrison Ford. So much so that it irritates Harrison. Yeah. And Mark is actually, I think, the best voice actor working today. He really is. And when I was working at LucasArts, we had him come in and do 4 voices for a game we were doing called Full Throttle. And you can't even tell that they're all the same person. I mean, he's just brilliant.
Yeah.
And of course, he's the voice of the Joker in so many different animated things as well. So.
All right, I didn't know that. Right, so Kiri Mac is asking who, out of all the people you worked with on set, was either the most inspirational or the most fun to work with.
Wow. Okay. My answers are probably going to be a little obscure. The very first commercial that I ever did was a commercial for Kenner Toys. And it was for a toy lightsaber. So it's this young kid against Darth Vader. And the kid has the toy lightsaber, Vader has the real lightsaber. And the real lightsaber itself, obviously, it doesn't light up. It's the decorative handle that you're used to seeing. But then there's a tapered rod, a plastic, high-impact plastic rod that they sort of like they make military Jeep antennas out of. So it has a little bit of give to it. So I have that. The child actor, who was about maybe 10, 11 years old, he's got the lightsaber, and he's dressed as Luke from Return of the Jedi. And we're in the Emperor's throne room doing this thing. And he was such an amazing trooper as an actor. We went all day, and he was so good, and he never complained. And we'd had to do so many different takes on things. And I actually stayed in touch with him for a while, and he was always my inspiration. So when I would think to myself, gosh, I can't do another take, it's hot in this costume, or any project I was working on, not even just Vader, I'd always think of him and think, yeah, I can, suck it up, you can do it. So that was my most inspiration. Most fun to be on set with? Oh my gosh. I hate to single anybody out because then everybody else will go, well, how come I'm not so fun? But
Andrew, I wouldn't worry. I highly doubt any of them are going to be watching this.
yeah, I gotta say Peter Mayhew, because he was just a lovely guy, and we did a couple of different shoots together, and he was a lot of fun, and somebody I'm gonna miss just terribly. So.
Right then. So another question which relates to flat Earth, obviously. Do Gungans believe Naboo is flat, seeing as they actually do live under their own firmament?
Miss, I think the flat is flat. No. I don't know what the Gungans think. In fact, I sometimes wonder what George was thinking with the Gungans. But actually, I don't have a big problem with the Gungans, I mean, or at least Jar Jar. A lot of people, bag on Jar Jar. I don't have a problem with Jar Jar. There are other characters I have problems with, but not Jar Jar. That's an interesting thing. I'm guessing that although they're a little odd, the Gungans are probably smart enough to figure out that the Earth or Naboo is round. So.
Yeah, and if the Gungans can figure that out, why can't some of the channels I look at? But yeah, somebody's just asked in the
someone who actually. What's that? Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, Andrew. Somebody's just, I'll forget otherwise. Because I've got the memory span of a senile goldfish. Somebody just asked in the side chat, did you ever work with Carrie Fisher? And if you did, what was she like?
I did with some personal appearances. So we would, if we were doing some kind of like photo shoot or a premiere or something like that, I didn't work with her on camera, but I did work with her in that sense. And she was lovely. She was absolutely wonderful. And just, she had a wicked sense of humor too. But that's another one that kind of hurts that she, is gone now. Because she was really, really great and very respectful of everybody who was working on set, whether you're a fellow actor or the crew or something like that. And I know she was a very close friend of George. One thing that's interesting about Carrie Fisher that a lot of people don't realize that she had become the most sought after script doctor in Hollywood. If you don't know what a script doctor is, it's somebody who's brought in to punch up a script that needs some kind of work. Maybe needs the dialogue needs to be fixed or something like that. And she was brilliant at that. So a lot of actors that were friends of hers would say, look, I'm working on this movie. You got to help me out. You got to come in and fix the script. You got to get them to help let you, fix the script. So she was really good at that. She was a brilliant writer, but she was lovely. She was a lot of fun too.
Right. So somebody has just asked, Corpus Defectus asks, what is your take on the theory that Jar Jar Binks was the new emperor from a couple of years back? Is that something you've heard? I've not heard that myself.
I've heard that. I've heard that he was like just a dark Jedi and everything like that. I think it's a fun theory. I can guarantee you it was not in George's head.
No,
that was not his reasoning behind it. No, George just wanted a fun character. By the way, a lot of people, here's another little trivia thing for you. The name of Jar Jar Binks actually came from George Lucas's 4-year-old son at the time. So I think he was about 4 or 5. Jet came up with the name of Jar Jar. So
yeah,
but
okay,
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. And again, you don't have to
give me a question.
Yeah, you don't have to stay there.
I'll give you a Jar Jar thing.
Okay, if you don't want to, right? But somebody just asked if Carrie Fisher was nice. I want to ask, was there anybody you worked with on the Star Wars set that was a complete dick and you would never want to work with them again?
Not a complete one, no.
Maybe a bit of a dick.
They're it's the entertainment industry. Not everybody's going to be nice. But I will say this. Here's the thing that's a little encouraging is that, and I've been in the entertainment industry now since I was 10 years old, but I very seldom have I run across someone who's just an absolute spanner. They're just a jerk. Most people are actually really nice. And so I've been very fortunate in that sense. So no, I haven't really. There hasn't been anybody that I've been involved with Star Wars that was just a complete jerk. There were some that got, they were a little. I don't want to say self-centered, but they were, self-centered is probably better. Not self-impressed, but just sort of thinking of themselves as opposed to thinking of the project or your fellow actors or your fellow crew or whatever like that. There've been a few, but no, I'm not going to name names on that.
No, of course, I was joking. I didn't expect you to, but obviously, with the amount of different things you've done, there must have been an instance where you were called upon to participate in a project, and you were like, "Oh God, no, not this guy or not this girl," but I'm gonna do it.
I'm pretty easygoing. I'm pretty forgiving with people there. I haven't had anybody that just really rubbed me so wrong that I just say, oh gosh, I can't work with them.
Yeah,
I find a way to do it. Now there may be people who just think, oh, I can't work with Andrew, but maybe, but they haven't made it known.
I was being a gentleman, and I omitted that part of the question.
I will say this because nobody's asked it yet. Because a lot of people ask me this. They say, "What's George Lucas like?" Well, they say, "What's George really like?" Because they ask you, because they think maybe what they see on television or in interviews, that's not him. That's him. He's just a regular, easygoing, mild-mannered guy. And I have actually spent a fair amount of time with George. He's a regular guy, mind you. He's a really, really, really rich regular guy, but you wouldn't know it because when George's idea of getting dressed up is he throws a sport coat over the plaid shirt and the jeans. That's his idea of getting dressed up. He's just a regular guy. When I was working at Industrial Light and Magic, there would be times where you wouldn't even know he was there until you turned a corner and you're about ready to bump into him, and it's like, oh, hi, George. And again, it's never Mr. Lucas. It's George. You set that up that way on purpose. And George would crack jokes in dailies. We'd sit in dailies, and he'd make jokes, and that's the thing. I was doing a lecture at one point. George is from a town called Modesto, California, and which is what inspired American graffiti and that sort of thing. That small town, and I was in Modesto doing a lecture, and his sister, who still lives in town, came up to see me afterwards, and I said, "Well, how did I do?" And she said, "You described my brother to a T." And I said to her, "I think the one thing that doesn't come across in the interviews is how funny your brother is." George Lucas has a really good sense of humor, kind of a dry sense of humor, and like I said, he would crack jokes in the middle of the dailies. But he's a brilliant guy, but very unassuming. Now Spielberg, on the other hand, is very different. He's Mr. Showman, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like if he's in the building, he's there. When he would, if he shows up, it's like, oh, Mr. Spielberg's coming. It's like, lo, the king approacheth. You know that he's coming. Yeah. And he's going to be there. And when the cameras come on, he's got an answer. He can speak to the camera, no problem. With George, it's like, he hems and haws because he's just an unassuming kind of guy, but he's brilliant. You can say what you want about. Some people argue, well, I didn't like this storyline or I didn't like this plot or that character. But when it comes down to the visuals, my gosh, he knows his stuff. There was a shot on Phantom Menace that we were working on where Jar Jar has to walk. He's walking up out of the swamp, and the camera's panning, and he's walking up out of the swamp, and he walks behind some bushes, and he joins Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn. And it was a live-action background. And there was a slight hesitation as the camera pans, and it just pauses for a moment and then continues on. And it was throwing off the animators completely because they were trying to get the timing right. They're animating Jar Jar coming up out of the swamp, and when that hesitation was there, Jar Jar would slide on the background and it just didn't look right. And they just didn't know what to do. And George took one look at it in dailies, and he goes, well, "Why don't you just have him slip in the mud?" It was like he knew right away that hesitation was right where Jar Jar was trying to take a step up on the bank. So Jar Jar does this little, half step and slides, and it fixed the timing. That's the stuff you can't learn in film school. So George is a great guy.
Right then. So what else do we have for you? Linda Bertelson asks, how did you get into the graphics and game development industry?
Oh, good question. When I was a kid, I wanted to be the next Ray Harryhausen. I wanted to be the guy. Ray Harryhausen was the granddaddy of visual effects, who created all the wonderful characters and the animated characters from Jason and the Argonauts and Seven Voyage of Sinbad and the original Clash of the Titans. And he was my hero. And I wanted to be a stop motion animator like Ray Harryhausen until the summer of '77, when I saw this little movie called Star Wars. And I remember sitting in the theater, watching the first Star Wars film, and somehow I managed to get what I think was the very best seat in the house, right in the center of the front, and I mean not the very front row, but right in the very perfect spot. And that opening scene where the Rebel blockade runner flies right over the camera, followed by that massive Star Destroyer, I looked up at the screen and I thought to myself, I want to do that for a living. Well, the problem was that there was nowhere to go to learn how to do that for a living, because the guys that did that for a living were making that up as they went along. That was all new stuff. Guys like Dennis Murin and Richard Edlund and John Dykstra, these guys were trailblazers. So I set about to try to figure out, well, how did they do this? And I remember it was the very first film I had ever stayed to watch the entire ending credits for, because I wanted to read the names. I wanted to find out who made this movie and how did they make it and how can I do it too. So I started reading any article I could find with interviews with these guys. I started experimenting with an old Super 8 film camera and just doing what I could and working my way up. Well, I got into the industry by I was acting, like I said, for many years, but I wanted to get into the post-production side of things. And I had sent my resume around everywhere and got a lovely stack of rejection letters. And then I saw an ad in the newspaper back before Craigslist, back before all these online things like that, and Monster and all those and LinkedIn and everything. People would go to the newspaper and you'd find the want ads and the classified ads, and there was an ad for a company called Lucasfilm Games. It wasn't even called LucasArts yet. It was called Lucasfilm Games, and they were looking for a customer support representative. And I thought, okay, that's my foot in the door. I've got to try for this. And so I got hired as a customer support representative at LucasArts. And so if you bought a LucasArts game and you brought it home and you tried to run it on your computer and you couldn't get it to run and you found the 800 number in the back of the manual, I was the poor sap that answered the phone. To show you how small LucasArts was at that time, when they hired me and they hired one other guy, they doubled the size of the customer support department. So there were 4 of us plus a manager. And I did that for about a year, answering those tech calls. But I started making friends with people in the art department and some of the game designers and things like that. And after about a year, I submitted my art portfolio to the art director. And she herself was actually going to be designing a game, and it was going to require a lot of full motion video. And I actually had a background in video from back right after I got out of high school. I was volunteering at a public access cable TV station in the United States. We used to have these things before YouTube. Now everybody can go to YouTube and that, but they used to be mandated by law that every municipality had a local public access TV station so the public could put their message on local television. And in fact, Dana Carvey, who's now famous from Wayne's World and Saturday Night Live and that sort of thing, he worked at the same station with me for a while. So I've crossed paths with a lot of people from Saturday Night Live over the years. But so I had this background in video, and so she brought me into the art department at the very bottom of the ladder as a position called art technician. So I wasn't even creating art. I was taking the art that the artists had done, which was in millions of colors, and I was dropping the palette down to 256 colors because that was the limitations of PCs back then. Actually, it was less than 256 colors because you couldn't touch the 32 Windows interface colors or everything goes wonky. So the first game that I worked on was a game called Mortimer and the Riddles of the Medallion, which none of you have ever heard of because it didn't sell well. It was a great game, but it used the Rebel Assault engine but the game, it was about a flying snail. So it was an edutainment game. When I first started on the game, I was an art technician, but by the time the game shipped, I had moved up to lead effects animator, and then soon after that, I became a visual effects supervisor and senior artist there at LucasArts. And then I transferred over to Industrial Light and Magic. I was hired into the rotoscoping department. Rotoscoping is where this is the department that if you've got a shot, let's say you've got a shot that's already been filmed, and you've got, let's say, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi in a shot, and Jar Jar has to walk in front of Qui-Gon Jinn, but behind Obi-Wan Kenobi. Well, to sandwich that CG character in there, you've got to trace the outline of that foreground character, Obi-Wan, every single frame. So you've got to isolate it, to protect it, so that you can put in another layer there. That's rotoscoping. Also, the rotoscoper does a lot of digital painting out stuff that didn't need to be there in the shot, or putting things in that should have been there and weren't. So you're removing tracking markers, you're removing safety harnesses and things like that you don't want to see show up in the final shot. Or sometimes you're removing entire actors. I've had to do that in shots as well too. But so I was hired into the rotoscoping department. I was basically a visual effects supervisor and compositor that got hired into rotoscoping, but immediately drafted into matte painting. I had never done a matte painting in my life. Matte paintings are the big, the beautiful backgrounds that you use in scenes. And so I was going to be working on the ground battle on Naboo for Phantom Menace. And at the end of my very first week at ILM, I'm presenting my first ever matte painting to Dennis Murin, the Mr. Visual Effects, Mr. ILM. And he's critiquing this, and I'm thinking to myself as I'm standing at Dennis's desk, wow, I used to cut photos of you out of Starlog magazine and put them on my wall. He was one of my heroes there. And he's making different comments about my very first matte painting. And then all of a sudden he just turns to me and he goes, well, I don't know, what do you think? And I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what to say, because my first thought was, well, you've got more Oscars than anybody alive. You tell me. But he was great. But that's how I got into the whole visual effects. And then, I ended up moving up in ILM. And then working at the Academy of Art University and teaching the next generation of visual effects artists, and then being a freelancer. I've also served on the board of directors of the Visual Effects Society, which is an honorary society. It's not a union like, say, the Screen Actors Guild, but it's more like the American Society of Cinematographers or the British Society of Cinematographers. It's an honorary society. We've got sections all over the country, all over the world. There's one in London. There's one in Sydney. There's one in I think we just opened up one in Shanghai, not Shanghai, but Singapore, and all over the United States. Obviously, there's one in Los Angeles. One of the largest ones is here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I've been involved then in visual effects ever since then, and I still teach and lecture on it as well, and still do effects for different things. So there's my long-winded story for your very short answer.
No, not long-winded at all. So, and again, I'm not going to ask you to validate this question, but if I was to say to you now, pull out your cell phone and call the most famous person that you have one-on-one contact with, who would that be?
I'll give you a call. If you were to call, I'll call you right now, quick.
So if you were to call one famous person now, who could you call? Who would it be?
Oh, you mean you're talking about people I actually have in my phone, or are you talking about people I would like to call?
No, just somebody who's really famous that we would have all heard of, and you could literally pick up your phone now and call them and say, hi, Harrison Ford, or whoever it may be.
Well, let's see. I could have called Peter, but Peter's passed now. Let's see who I could call. I could call Daniel Logan. I could call Ray Park, who played Darth Maul. I'm trying to think of the Star Wars ones. Who else? For anybody who's a fan of Little House on the Prairie, I could call Ms. Beadle, the school marm from that show. Charlotte Stewart, who was also in the Tremors movies and things like that. She's a dear friend. So it's interesting, like I said, you run into a lot of people, and then eventually you do make contact. I could call the soup Nazi from Seinfeld. Larry Thomas. Larry Thomas. I know Larry Thomas. I could call him. I could literally call him right now on the phone, but I won't, though. He's busy. So I need to say no phone call for you. So.
Somebody is asking as well, did you keep all the rejection letters as a souvenir?
Yes, I did. I have them in a binder. I have them. Yes, absolutely. Including the one that I got in 1991 from Lucasfilm. I had actually applied directly for Lucasfilm to get some kind of, PA job, or something like that. and was rejected. Got a lovely rejection letter, and I actually would show that when I would teach, and I would say, don't give up on your dreams. You're going to knock on a lot of doors. You're going to get a lot of people saying no, but eventually you'll get a yes. It may not be the yes that you expected. It may be a yes that leads to a yes that leads to, to where you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Or it may be a yes that takes you much further than you ever expected. So and I would show them, here's what I've done. And now look, I had a rejection letter from the very same people that's launched my career. So
yeah. I suppose it's all part of kind of the process of getting to where you eventually want to be, isn't it? So
absolutely
keep them, because it's all part of the journey.
And the same thing happens here on YouTube. The same thing happens here on YouTube. Your channel could be sitting around, you get, just a few subscribers, and then all of a sudden, boom, the algorithm grabs one of your videos and it goes nuts.
Yeah.
With it. So
well, that's what happened with Simon Dan, isn't it? And his channel absolutely exploded, and that was all thanks to just one video. The algorithm, for whatever reason, liked it, and it really pushed that video out, and his channel just exploded.
And it's starting to happen with my channel.
It can happen with anybody's channel. Somebody is asking as well, and I found this question particularly interesting. What do you think when people like Robot Chicken and Family Guy do parodies of the Star Wars movies? Do you enjoy them, or do you think they should leave them be?
I think they're great. I think they're wickedly brilliant. I especially love the one from Robot Chicken where the Emperor is going down the escalator and all the stormtroopers are coming up and he's having to salute them and say hi to all of them. I think that's hysterical.
I've got to be honest, I've never seen the Robot Chicken one, but I must have watched the Family Guy one about 50 times because I love Family Guy anyway.
Keep in mind too that George likes a lot of those parodies. George likes a lot of them.
Does he?
So,
have you guys ever seen the one that Eddie Izzard does about the canteen in the Death Star?
No, I haven't. I know obviously who Eddie Izzard is, but I have not seen that one. No.
He does a skit about what it would be like to go to the canteen in the Death Star and have Darth Vader show up in line behind you.
I think you have to have fun with it.
Andrew, somebody's asking as well what your opinion is on Spaceballs. I forgot about Spaceballs.
Oh yeah, Spaceballs. I saw Spaceballs originally in rough cut form. I was invited to a screening of it before the film was even finished. It still had temporary music and temporary sound, and not everything was finished yet. And then I saw it again years later. I think it's good. I don't think the film holds up quite as well as I had hoped it would. I don't think it doesn't hold up as well as a lot of other Mel Brooks movies, but I still think it's funny. And Rick Moranis is wonderful in there as Dark Helmet.
Yeah, he's a very funny guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I tell you what, while I'm looking for another question, Andrew, do you want to make everyone aware of your YouTube channel as well? Because
sure,
it's only fair.
Okay. Yes, I have a YouTube channel. Darth Vader has a YouTube channel and has nothing to do with Star Wars, really. Everybody has a hobby. I think you need a hobby in order to not go crazy. And for me, I have aquariums. I keep fish. And so that's my hobby. And so my channel, it's called Aquatasy, Aquatasy, like aquatic fantasy. And it's basically it's a fresh look at the hobby of fish keeping from a humorous and cinematic perspective. So I take a lot of my cinematic sensibilities and I apply it to the hobby there. So I also have sassy back talking fish that they're horrible. You don't have to live with them. I do, and so I use a lot of humor. I do a lot of teaching with it. But the thing is, when you work in the entertainment industry, whether you're acting or you're doing visual effects or animation or anything like that, voiceover, there's a lot of pressure on you because at any given moment, it feels like there's a multi-million-dollar production sitting on your shoulders waiting for you to get your part of it done. That's how it feels. The reality of it is, there really is a multi-million-dollar production sitting on your shoulders waiting for you to get your part of it done. And that's a lot of pressure. And for me, I'm able to just relax with my hobby. And so I never meant to actually have a YouTube channel. I was online on a forum trying to get some information about some sort of species, and everybody on the forum was like, "Hey, everybody, post a video of your tank." So I thought, all right, I'll join in. But me being me, the kind of person I am doing all this stuff, I can't just like get out the cell phone and shoot something and upload it. No, I've got to add titles to it and add graphics to it and music and make it all look nice. And then I was looking for somewhere to host the video, and YouTube seemed easy, but you have to create a channel for yourself. And so I thought, well, if I'm creating a channel, I have to give it a name. And I thought, well, if I'm giving it a name, I should probably give it a name that I can get a URL for just in case. And I started to snowball from there. So I posted the first video and put a link on the forum, and everybody on the forum was like, that's great, you should do another one. So I did another one, So now I've got over 8,000 subscribers for Fish Tank channel. I've got 8,000 subscribers. You know, the channel, you know, is got, you know, over 500,000 views on it, and I'm having fun. And I get to combine everything that I enjoy doing, you know, acting, comedy, effects, animation, motion graphics, editing, and my hobby all together. So, you know, if everybody wants to check it out, you can.
This is the thing, though. You say 8,500 subscribers on a Fish Tank channel. You just don't know. I truly believe that there's an audience for anything you care to put on YouTube. You just have to find that audience. And the moderators in the chat have shared the link to your channel. So if you find some mysterious new subscribers, it's because the good people that watch my videos will hop over and have a look at your content as well. But what I was saying is you don't know what's going to work, which is why I'm shocked that I've picked up over 6,000 subscribers in 6 months, because I still find it difficult to understand. Yeah, I still find it difficult to understand why people, not why people watch me. They watch me because I'm clearly awesome, obviously, Andrew.
Well, of course. But,
you know, and modest as well to go with it. Yeah, exactly. But
you're so incredibly handsome. And
well, obviously, very shiny head, shinier than Darth Vader's helmet. You just never know what's. You just never know what's going to grab people's attention.
You're shiny.
You just never know what's going to grab people's attention and what people are going to enjoy watching.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I had a video that was almost a year old that suddenly the algorithm said, "Ooh, I like this one," and it went from literally in 2 months it went from 1,500 views to now 168,000 views. It's boom. It's you don't know. It's just, but that's why you don't give up. You know, I worked on the film Galaxy Quest, and the famous line from that is "Never give up, never surrender." You don't give up. You just keep working at it. I had dinner with the guys from Mystery Science Theater a few years back, and Joel Hodgson, who was the creator of Mystery Science Theater, he had said that when it comes down to creating content, and when creating your shows and everything, just keep working at it, because eventually the right people will get it. That's why they filled those shows with so many jokes and everything that are kind of obscure, but the right people will get it, and they'll click, and they'll click with you. I met Chuck Jones years ago, the famous animating director from Warner Brothers, who directed all these wonderful Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and all those things, and created the Roadrunner and Coyote and Pepe Le Pew. And Chuck came to see us at ILM, and he had said to me, he said, all these old wonderful Warner Brothers cartoons, we didn't make them for kids. We didn't make them for adults. We made them for ourselves. We knew that we had to make something that was true to us, and then audiences would find it, and it clicks. And that's what you do, and that's what you do, Creaky. I mean, you are doing something that obviously you're enjoying doing, and people catch on with that. They love that kind of mirth, and hopefully, I think that's what people are doing with the quality.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think, and I watch a lot of videos on YouTube, and I see some videos, and thankfully none from within the niche I work within. And the people that are presenting the videos, it's almost as if somebody's stood just off camera holding a gun to their head, forcing them to do it. They just don't seem to be enjoying what they're doing, and it comes across as very robotic. People have asked me, about the way I film my videos. I literally choose a video, throw it into my editor, and make it all up as I go along, because otherwise I feel as if I'm being a little bit robotic and a little bit stale. And I know that I know some of the guys use scripting, and it works well for them. But I know that some of the other guys, I know, for example, Radical the Unhallowed Knight works in exactly the same way as me. He chooses a video, throws it into his editor, watches it through, and then reacts to what he's watching. And I just think it works. It works for me anyway. You know, I can't sort of speak for anyone else, obviously, but that's kind of my process.
It's become your style too. It's become your style.
Yeah.
And I love those moments where I can see an honest reaction from you, and you're just, you know, you're laughing. You're looking away from the monitor. You just like, you can't believe it. And plus, your topic, it's ripe for, you know, you're not going to run out of any kind of fodder for this. I mean, it's just too many wackadoodles out there.
Yeah, exactly.
with good intentions, but strange minds.
Yeah, you know, because with the laughing, I used to edit that out because I used to think, oh, you know, if I'm filming something and they'll say something and then my response caused me to giggle, I used to edit that out. But then
me too.
I started to think, why am I editing that out? Because, you know, that's part of, and thankfully people seem to like it, and that's why I've started leaving it in. But based on some of the comments I've been getting, I think I may need to ease off on the close-up shots a little bit. But
well, I actually left. I took a page from you because I was going to cut one out of my most recent video, and I left it in.
Yeah,
I broke up laughing.
Yeah. I think that's what makes it sort of flowy and natural. And I know that Radical works in exactly the same way, and his videos are very. A lot of people have got a comparison with Radical to Monty Python, including himself. That sort of style of comedy, and it just seems to work.
Yeah.
Somebody in the side chat.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, Andrew. I've just noticed somebody. It'll disappear otherwise. Somebody's asking if you had to choose an accent for Darth Vader, would it be Welsh, Irish, or Scottish?
Well, I have to choose the same one that Creaky's using right now. So
yeah, I haven't got. Everybody asks me about my accent. I don't hear it myself, but
I love it.
Then
again, you probably hear me and you go, "Oh my gosh, listen to this California boy talking." But that's the thing. We here in California, we think we don't have an accent until you travel to other parts of the country and they go, "Oh, you're from California." It's like, "Oh, how'd you know?" We think we have the quintessential, you know, television voice, where, you know, all the newscasters and things like that in the United States try to have that non-regional voice. But my problem as an actor is I love voices, I love dialects, I love accents, and I have a very bad problem of when I get into a conversation with somebody who has a strong accent or a strong dialect, I want to mimic it, and it's not in a mocking way. It's just that I love it. And I can remember years ago just talking with people, and it's like somebody saying, "Well, you know, my favorite doctor was Patrick Troughton. I always liked Patrick Troughton as a doctor." And I go, "Oh, really? Yeah, I kind of like John Pertwee, but my favorite is." And I didn't realize I'm doing the same voice back to them, and it's like, it's so embarrassing.
The guy's probably looking at you. What the hell?
Like,
see, now,
where are you from?
Now, to me,
I'm from San Francisco. Where are you from?
To me, as an observer, see, you just sound American, and then an American with an accent would be somebody from the South or somebody from Boston. You know, they've got an accent, but to me, you just sound American. But I guess
American.
That's because of the movies, and because whenever you see an American in the movies, you are what they sound like. In my, you know, that's only my opinion, but you know, an American with an accent would be a Southern American, or you know, that kind of thing.
What I think is fascinating to me is that, and I think this comes from the training and probably a lot of the theater training too, for a lot of actors in Britain, is that British actors, I think on average, are much better at doing American accents than American actors doing British accents. I mean, my British accents are probably atrocious, but although they're not too bad because I grew up watching a lot of British television. So not just Monty Python and Benny Hill and stuff like that, but I was watching To the Manor Born and Butterflies and Are You Being Served and things like that, and Dad's Army and all those sort of things. So I grew up with that sort of stuff. But there you know, there's tons of actors that come over here, and it's like I didn't even realize that they were British until I hear them interviewed somewhere. I mean, some of them I knew, like
Yeah.
Hugh Laurie came over here. He was on House, and he does a brilliant American accent. But it's like I'd watched him on Blackadder and things like that for years, and Fry and Laurie, and it's like, that's not his voice. I know his real voice. So
Yeah,
but
because the thing that puzzles me, and again, so I'll use The Walking Dead as an example, because that's another show that I really enjoy watching. Sorry, not walking. So many of the actors in that are British, and because I wasn't apart from like the lead roles, and I wasn't overly familiar with a lot of the actors. So when a studio is casting for somebody to play a character in a TV show like The Walking Dead, is how they speak secondary. Oh yeah, they're an actor, so they will be able to speak in the correct sort of accent for us. Is the accent secondary, or do they not worry about it? Or
I don't think
because
that way. No,
why weren't American actors just to have everyone in The Walking Dead, which is an American show, to have them all be American actors? That's one thing that's always puzzled me for some bizarre reason, and I don't know why.
I think the reason is that well, the first thing is that when people are put up for a role in something, the casting people they're going to look for the whole package. Do you look like the character that they're trying to cast? Do you sound like the character they're going to cast? So it's the agents that will tell their clients, the different actors, okay, I've got an audition for you for an American show, and you're going to have to do an American accent for it. So they go in doing the American accent. So they maybe it'll be listed on their resume or something that that they're from Britain, but they go in doing the American accent as part of their audition or part of their audition tape or whatever. But so it's not like they go in and do the whole audition and then they say, well, can you do an American accent? That usually doesn't happen. They usually go in knowing that they're going to be expected to do an American accent.
Yeah.
And that's the way it works. So
yeah, I know that's a bit of an off the topic question, but it's something that's always puzzled me with America being such a huge country and so many. The pot of actors must be huge in comparison to somewhere like the UK.
Oh yeah.
Why do so many UK actors get roles in American movies or television shows? Does that make sense?
Good. Because they're good. That's why. Yeah. That is true. There's a lot.
So, yeah, right. So we got more questions, I think.
Yes.
So, oh God, I don't know how to say that name. Anyway, you'll know who he is. How much momentum would you say the story lost in Star Wars by waiting 17 years before Episode 1 was released? So in between Return of the Jedi and Star Wars Episode 1 was 17 years. Do you think the story lost any momentum? I don't, because it's such an iconic story. And I think if somebody has watched I must have watched all the Star Wars films 500 times in that 17 years. So for me, no, but obviously it's a question for you, not for me.
I agree with you, Creaky. I agree. I think that I don't think there was any momentum lost in there. In fact, I think if anything, obviously the anticipation was huge. And what Lucasfilm did, and I think they were very smart to do this, was that they allowed all these other stories to be written, all these books, the whole expanded universe, which of course Disney has sort of swept under the carpet now, but they're calling them, was it Legends or something like that now, so that maybe it's canon, maybe it's not canon. But Lucasfilm in the late 80s, early 90s, they allowed all these different books to be written, all the different Timothy Zahn books and all the other things like that. When we were working at LucasArts, we were given a chance to create some different storylines, some interesting storylines. The Dark Forces Jedi Knight storyline with Kyle Katarn and his journey becoming a Jedi. That was a big thing. The Shadows of the Empire was a huge project, and kind of an interesting project, because they decided, what if we make a whole bunch of products for a tie-in for a movie that doesn't exist? They created Shadows of the Empire, a story that takes place between Empire Strikes Back, if I remember correctly, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And they had this character named Dash Rendar, who's the center of this thing. But they did a video game, which I worked on. They did a soundtrack album. They did a novelization. They did action figures. They did all this stuff, but there's no movie. But at the same time, this builds up, it keeps the momentum going. So fandom in the 80s and 90s was still pretty high by the time that that Phantom Menace came out. And so the anticipation for Phantom Menace was huge. And I actually have kind of a funny little story to tie into that. I got when I first got hired at Industrial Light and Magic to work on Phantom Menace, I got called for jury duty. And so
Andrew, Andrew, before you go on, let me just throw this because it ties nicely into talking about Industrial Light and Magic. And I've missed this question, and the viewers asked it a few times. They were asking if working at Industrial Light and Magic was like working in a magic factory. So I don't know how well that'll tie into the story you're going to tell now, but
okay.
I apologize.
Well,
I've kept missing the question.
I'll set the story aside that I was going to tell. I'll just wrap up that story I was going to tell real quick, which was that I got called for jury duty, and I was trying to get out of doing jury duty, and I told the judge that, well, if I don't get back to my job, then you're going to prevent the very first Star Wars film in 17 years from being released because I won't be there to do my part of it. And the judge said, okay, I'll let you go. So that's how I got out of jury duty. But
he was obviously a fan.
Yes. So, I mean, it wasn't that it was just me that would be holding it up, but I was a cog in the machine. I was part of it. So
yeah.
But to answer the other question about, is it like working in a magic shop? In some ways it is. Both working at LucasArts and ILM, it was magic, and it was this sort of interesting, quirky place to work, and it wasn't particularly corporate. It was later on when I was working at LucasArts, which is one of the reasons I wanted to go to ILM. But there was a magic to it. The fact that you're able to do these things, and you can create all of these wonderful images and things like that. And it was a wonderful atmosphere, and it was very team effort, so that your iron sharpens iron, and everybody gets good at what they do by sharing what they know. And so you could go to other artists, you could go to other people and get their insight on things, and that was wonderful. And there was a lot of madness and mayhem too, because like I said, there's a lot of pressure working in that kind of business, and you have to be able to to blow off some steam. And so there was a lot of good-natured mischief. We would abuse the PA system. There would be speaker systems all throughout ILM because it was in several different buildings. And if you had to be, you had to page somebody, please come to this building or pick up this phone or call this number. So we would send out like joke pages. You would see people dressed in costumes sometimes running through the hallways. We had a Post-it note art contest where all the art was done on Post-it notes, either drawn on little Post-it notes or constructed out of Post-it notes, just to stop yourself from cracking. So there is that part. So it is magic, but at the same time, it's work. And there are some times where you just have hours and hours of tedium doing things where it's not all glitz and glamour, and it's not just click 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 with a mouse and then you've got dinosaurs on the screen or you've got spaceships flying. There's a lot of work involved in it. I had one shot on Attack of the Clones that took me 2 months to complete. 2 months of my life working on one shot. And it was a difficult shot where I'm painting things out of a shot and painting things into a shot to try to to hide a puppeteer and things like that. And then the shot got cut from the movie. So 2 months of your life is just gone like that. Actually, the shot is still there, but it was reworked, and so very little of my work was there. Just the sort of the cleaned up background of it was there. But you can't go nuts over that. I mean, I got paid. Nobody asked for the money back. So
yeah,
but that's the way the industry is. But yeah, so sometimes it's magic.
Yeah,
sometimes it's magic. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I bet. Another question from Radical the Unhallowed Knight. I think he's on a bit of a roll tonight, Andrew. It's quite a good question, actually. So, obviously, James Earl Jones is the voice of Darth Vader. So, I think what he's asking is, when the actors involved were recording the scenes for Darth Vader and didn't know how he should sound, were they trying to make him sound in a particular way? Because is that right that James Earl Jones, they weren't aware, that Stuart Prowse wasn't aware, that Dave Prowse, sorry, wasn't aware that he was going to be overdubbed?
That's absolutely true.
So was he trying to be? True. So he was trying to be Darth Vader, then just to kind of sit down, watch the film, and think, "Hang on a second, that's not my voice."
Yeah, that's not me. No, it's true. It's true. I think he got a heads up before he actually saw it, but it's true. At the time, he did the whole thing, and he thought that was it. He's done. Now, me as an actor, I kind of find that. I mean, I'm not throwing shade on him, because I thought, like I said, when I met Dave Prowse, he was a lovely man. But I would have thought, well, at some point, I'm behind a mask. Everything's muffled. If they're going to use my voice, wouldn't they call me into a studio to record the dialogue? I mean, Anthony Daniels, you can't hear him in the 3PO costume. He has to come in and dub all his voice in later. So you would think, and if the film's coming out Wednesday and it's Tuesday, and they haven't called you into the studio yet, maybe they're not using your voice.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is with James Earl Jones, to show you how consummate an actor he is, he did all those lines for the first film in one day, in just a couple of hours, one take each.
Really?
That's what I've been told. He did it in one take. Now,
So
he spent a little more time on Empire Strikes Back. He spent a little more time on it, but he thought, well, it's just a one and done, one time deal. He didn't know. Nobody knew what Star Wars was going to turn into.
Yeah,
but it was the right call. He's the perfect choice.
We'll carry on with the James Earl Jones theme, because it was one of his lines, and Jake Weir 01 wants you to clear something up. What was the original line? Is it "No, I am not your father," or "Luke, I am your father"?
It's the Mandela effect here and going on. The actual line is, Vader says to Luke, he says, "Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father." And Luke says, "He told me enough. He told me you killed him." And then Vader says, "No, I am your father." That's the line.
I could have answered that as well, because it's like you say, it's the Mandela effect. Everybody is just convinced that he says, "I am your father."
Yeah, Luke, I am your father. That's what everybody... And people come up to me at conventions. They'll say, "Can you say, 'Luke, I am your father'?" And I say, "Yeah, but that's not the line." It's like in Casablanca. In Casablanca, Humphrey Bogart never said, "Play it again, Sam." He said, "You played it for her, you can play it for me. If she can take it, I can. I'll play it." That's the line. So,
but people have... It kind of gets diluted down, and again, then people start, "Oh, yeah, this is what he said," even when it was never said.
Right.
Right then. Another question from Radical the Unhallowed Knight. How shocking. What do you think of the old school series such as Blake 7 and Red Dwarf?
Love
Blake
them.
7.
Absolutely
So cool.
But Blake 7, that first season of Blake 7, it is so bargain basement. It is. It looks like they had £2.50 maybe to make it. It was so so. I think they were using. It's like, I think they went over to the Doctor Who production headquarters and said, "Are you done with that? Can we use that?" But it's all about story. It's all about character. I love Blake 7. I love Red Dwarf is hysterical. Love Red Dwarf. I'm a big fan of Doctor Who, and so love all that stuff.
Somebody called 1 Minute Debunk in the chat is asking, I don't know, talk more about Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest. I love Galaxy Quest. If you haven't seen Galaxy Quest, everybody needs to see Galaxy Quest. It's such a good film. It has so much heart. I am so pleased. People ask me all the time, well, what's the thing you're most proud of working on? And as much as I love Star Wars, I'm really proud of having worked on Galaxy Quest. I love that. Wait a minute. Where is it? There's the poster right there. But I I worked on Galaxy Quest, worked on the effects for it. The Galaxy Quest, it's funny because when you work in visual effects, you can work for 6 months to a year or more on a movie, and you never know if the movie's any good until it comes out in theaters and you see it, because you see it out of sequence, you see it without sound, you see your portion of the movie, and that's it. And when we were working, the only people who really see a lot of it are like maybe the visual effects supervisor or something like that. But when we were working on Galaxy Quest at Industrial Light and Magic, the studio sent us a rough cut of the movie, and that never ever happens. And so we all crammed into one of the screening rooms at ILM, and we sat down to watch it. And we were thinking, "Oh my gosh, this movie's great!" And we just got all excited to get the film finished. So I didn't do a huge amount of shots on it, but I did some really fun stuff involving the Thermians and the scene where you first see the Thermians, which are these squid-like characters, and they morph into their human shape, and the scene where Tim Allen he's finally aware that he's on board a spaceship for the first time, and he's got this sort of gelatinous force field coming over him, and he comes hurtling through space back to Earth. I worked on that sequence and some other stuff at the end of the film too, and some in the middle. But I love Galaxy Quest. It's about a bunch of actors, very much like Star Trek. It was like there was an old TV show that has taken on this sort of cult status, like the classic Star Trek, and these actors that were on there, their careers never really went anywhere, but now they're doing a lot of conventions and signings and openings of stores and things like that, just to earn a buck and keep doing it. And they're doing these conventions, and they're at a convention, and these people come up to them and say that they need their help to fight their galactic war. Well, there's a planet out there somewhere, that the Thermian planet, where they believe these broadcasts that have gone out through space were real. They call them the historical documents, and they are wanting the crew of this ship, the Protector, to come and help them fight their battle. And they have built an entire spaceship based on what they saw in the TV show, but they have no idea how to make it work. And so they want to bring these actors out there, and they sort of, kind of kidnap these actors to go on board this ship and fight this battle. So it's a wonderful film. If you get a chance to see it, see it.
Right. Somebody's asking.
Sorry, I'm very passionate about that film.
Yeah. What do you think of the aftermath and the Empire being easily destroyed in canon? I don't know. Don't even know what that means. What do you think of the aftermath and the Empire?
Are you talking about after Return of the Jedi? Or are you talking?
Yeah, I think the whole
downfall? Yeah. I think it's believable. I mean, you can see that in history where there's an empire that seemed, unbeatable, that suddenly is dethroned, and it happens. I mean, whoever thought Alexander the Great would go under? It's wow, and yet it did. Look at the Roman Empire. Whoever thought that would collapse, but it did. So
yeah.
I didn't see a problem with that story wise.
So Andrew, do you think there's going to be any sort of finality to Star Wars? Do you think it's going to get to the point and they're going to say, that's it, this is the final thing that will ever be made that relates to the Star Wars universe?
Only if Disney really, really, really messes up. No, I don't think there's ever any end to Star Wars. I mean, no. Is there an end to Lord of the Rings? I mean, even if Peter Jackson stops making movies, it still continues on, and people want to hear stories, and people want to tell stories and things like that. I think Star Wars even more. I don't think there's going to be an end to it. I mean, it may get better, it may get worse at times. You may have some projects that are lackluster and some that are really good, but it's never going to disappear, and the fans will keep it alive, because even if it goes away professionally, the fans will keep it going.
Right, everyone in the side chat, we've got about 10 minutes left, so if you've got any more questions that you want to put to Andrew, fire away now. I'm going to start watching the side chat now to see if we can get anything come in spontaneously.
Sure.
So you never know. That could always be interesting, because I just spotted somebody asking why isn't the Death Star flat, but I think we covered that earlier on. Somebody is asking, I'm not sure the one-man rule is why the Empire was defeated. Somebody wants to know your opinions on Star Trek.
It was one man and a whole bunch of Ewoks.
Yeah. Your opinion on Star Trek?
I love Star Trek. I was a Star Trek fan as a kid. I remember watching the original series when it was a brand new show, and I've always been a fan of Star Trek. Not so much of the recent films. I mean, I didn't like Star Trek Into Darkness. I really liked Star Trek Beyond. I thought that was good. I have not watched Star Trek Discovery, the new series. It just doesn't seem to appeal to me. It doesn't seem very much like Star Trek. But I love Next Generation and all of those spin-offs as well. And I know several of the actors from there. Marina Sirtis is a lovely person. She's just a lot of fun. If you ever get to go to a convention with Marina Sirtis, go. She is the funniest person on the planet. She's just wonderful.
Swagatha Christie was one of my favorite viewers, purely because I like their name, is asking, who's your favorite voice actor?
My favorite voice actor of all time would be Mel Blanc, because he was the man. He created all those voices from all the different Warner Brothers cartoons. He was every voice except for Elmer Fudd, which was Arthur Q. Bryan, and then the female voices who were June Foray, and June was wonderful too. I actually knew her. But current favorite voice, it's got to be Billy West. Billy West is wonderful. This is hard because I have so many friends that are voice actors, Phil Lamar and Maurice LaMarche and everybody. But Billy West is fantastic. He's the voice of Ren and Stimpy. He's the voice of Fry on Futurama, and Billy's just he's amazing. You can throw anything at him. He's like Mel Blanc. You can throw anything at him, and boom, he's got a voice for you right then and there. And voice acting is not easy. I mean, it's fun. It's great because you can be anything you want. You can be anything. Doesn't matter what you look like or how you look while you're doing it. I've actually been a surfer dude octopus singing country western music for an animated TV show, and I don't look like that. But
if anyone had asked me to describe you prior to, that's probably exactly how I would have described you, Andrew. In fairness.
Oh, Andrew, yeah, he's a surfer dude octopus. He's always singing country western music.
Yeah. Corpus Defectus is asking, if you could choose, would you like to play the bad guy again?
Sure.
I don't know if you mean just Darth Vader or bad guys in general.
No, I would play any interesting character. Bad guy, good guy, doesn't matter. The villains are interesting because you get to do a little more with them and you have a little more license. You can be a little more over the top with some of it. I would play a bad guy again. As long as the story shows that the bad guy is really the bad guy. Don't make the bad guy into this hero. I don't want you to be rooting for the killer to kill everybody. Like those mad slasher movies. Where you're rooting for the bad guy to slice up all the teenagers. No, I don't. That kind of character I don't want to play. But I would play a good villain. Absolutely.
Mike Bertelston is asking, how much fun was it working on Rocky and Bullwinkle? Did you watch it as a kid?
Oh, yeah. I grew up watching Rocky and Bullwinkle, and, hey, watch me pull a rabbit out of a hat. I love Rocky and Bullwinkle. And so when that came to ILM, when we got that project, I fought to get on that movie. I said, please, you've got to put me on that movie. I got to do this thing. Some of my hardest effect shots were on that. What's that?
I just said, not again.
Yeah, not again. That trick never works. This time for sure. So I loved Rocky and Bullwinkle. So and the film actually I think turned out pretty good. It's a nice little love letter to the old show. But some of my hardest effect shots were on that, and so I have a great fondness for that. William Sines asks,
Malcolm Reynolds versus Han Solo, who would win?
Han Solo.
Al Loop asks, what's your opinion on the original Battlestar Galactica?
It's funny because when I first saw it, we were all hyped up, and I remember seeing all the concept art that was published in magazines done by Ralph McQuarrie, who did the original Star Wars concept art, and so I was really excited for Battlestar Galactica. When it came on, I was thinking, oh, this is kind of, they're trying to rip off Star Wars. But as the show went on, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. And, you know, it's not perfect. It's kind of camp. And when you get down to like the Galactica 1980, it's really, really camp and everything. But it's fun. It's fun. It's kind of a guilty pleasure for me. And I have friends that were actors on that show, and so it's fun. And I know people that have done some of the effects for it, so it's a fun show. I've never actually been able to watch the new Galactica, and it's a technical issue because they try to make it look, the remake series. They tried to make it look like it was handheld, and it was not shot handheld. It was all done in post production. It was a fake handheld camera movement. It's called, all the camera movement was faked in post production, and I can tell that as a visual effects artist. I can tell that, and it drives me nuts. So I can see all the keyframes for how, okay, now it's going to go to here, now the camera's going to move there, and so I can't watch it. I tried to. I know that from an acting and story standpoint, it's wonderful, but no, I'll stick with the original.
Right, and our final question, because I've got to choose a final question. And I'm asking this one because it puzzles me. It comes from Paul Griffiths, and the question is: does the Darth costume still fit you now?
Probably not. I'm probably maybe 10 pounds, 15 pounds away from fitting into it, but I could probably get there. I'm not too far away from it, but I could probably get there. And it's an incredible privilege.
Sorry, Andrew. The costume you wore, that was the so was there one made specifically for you, or was it a case of this is the costume, you've got to get your ass in it by hook or by crook? You've got to make yourself fit.
For the first 4 years or so that I was playing Vader, I was wearing the original costume. In fact, one time I actually had on pieces from New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, so all combined together. Yeah. But mostly I was wearing Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi costumes, and some of them actually said D. Prowse in the collar of them. So
did they?
Yes. So I did that, but then as Indiana Jones said in Last Crusade, it belongs in a museum. So they would start taking pieces away from us, and we would have to create replicas. So there was actually Don Bees from the ILM model shop and his wife Anna created 18 replicas that all fit me. They were all tailored to fit me, and we would use those for various things, so that we had some extra to you don't want to keep wearing the same one without washing it. So, and there was one very specific cleaners that we would take it to, because it was the only one we would trust. It's like, okay, here, we're taking real Star Wars costumes to you. You better be good with it. So. Yeah, so there were some that were made for me, but I did wear the original costume. The last pieces that they took away from us were the boots and the head. So right. But then we ended up with replicas for those.
Right, and this is the final question, because I'm kind of curious about this.
Bonus final question.
This is the very last final question. The very last final question, okay, from Chaff Girl. Did you get to keep any souvenirs off the set? That you can openly admit.
No, not from that. Not from playing Darth Vader. No, you don't get to see. But you get so many other things. You get all these wonderful memories. You get these wonderful experiences. I could literally write a book. There's so many things that have happened. I mean, so many stories to tell, and you make so many wonderful friends. And I've got lots of photographs. I've got just tons of stuff. I do have some props from I have one prop from the Jedi Knight game that we did at LucasArts, which had a half-hour full-motion video in it. And so there was a little holographic projector. There were 3 of them that we had made, and I have one of those from that. But I don't have anything from the movies. I wish I did sometimes, but then other people have said, "Oh, hey, would you like somebody to? Do you have your own Vader costume? Would you have one tailor-made for you?" But like the guys from the 501st Legion have asked me this many times. Hey, we'll hook you up, and it's like, no, I've worn the real deal. I don't want to. If I have my own, it kind of takes the specialness from it. So
it wouldn't be the same thing, would it?
No, But there is a wonderful person that from the 501st who said, no, you need a Vader head, so I'm making one for you. So he's making one for me, and he's going to send it to me, and it'll appear back here on my desk. So
that's very cool. That's
Yeah.
very cool. Right. Thank you to everyone who has watched. I apologize for the technical difficulties we had at the beginning, but if you've watched the Creaky Blinder live stream before, it would have been nothing new to you. If you've got any more questions, post them in the comment section. I'm sure that Andrew will take a little look through when he gets 5 minutes to spare. To anybody whose question I missed, I apologize. But like I say, drop them down in the comment section and Andrew will take a look at them when he gets 5 minutes to spare.
Sure.
And thank you everyone for watching. Do you want to make any closing statement, Andrew, or is goodbye going to suffice?
Well, absolutely. I want to say thank you to everybody for showing up here to come see me. You know, I'm an ordinary guy who gets to do extraordinary things, and I don't take it for granted. And so, you know, I'm blessed and fortunate to be able to do what I do for a living. But if you want to find out more about me, you can go to CAndrewNelson.com. That's my official website, and you can find out all sorts of things. Find out where I'm going to be appearing or lecturing or the things that I'm working on. I'm also C.Andrew Nelson on Facebook. I think I'm the only C.Andrew Nelson on Facebook. I am C_Andrew_Nelson on Twitter because some bloke down in Australia, well, maybe not because Australia doesn't exist, but some guy down in Australia supposedly has C.Andrew Nelson no underscores on Twitter, and he won't give it up, and he's not even using it. But I'm C_Andrew_Nelson on Twitter, and I'm C.Andrew Nelson on Instagram, and again, Aquadacy on YouTube. So come check me out, and you know, you can also, you know, send me a message that way too through any of those outlets and ask me whatever burning questions you couldn't bear yourself to, you know, to ask during this public display here. So, and thank you, Creaky, for having me on your show and having me on your live stream. This was fantastic. I had so much fun, and you know, keep doing what you're doing. This is great.
Thank you,
everybody.
Andrew. And
the force is strong with
I
you.
enjoyed having you here as well. Dave, kill the stream.
All right. Have a good one, guys.